Episode number 793, Influence People with Stories.
You're listening to the official BNI podcast with BNI founder and Chief Visionary Officer, Dr. Ivan Misner. Stay tuned for networking and referral marketing tips from the man who's been called the father of modern networking, along with suggestions and insights into getting the most from your membership in the world's largest networking organization, BNI.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the official BNI podcast. I'm Priscilla Rice, and I'm coming to you from Live Oak Recording Studio in Berkeley, California, and I'm joined on the phone today by the founder and the Chief Visionary Officer of BNI, Dr. Ivan Misner. Hello, Ivan. How are you, and where are you?
I am doing fantastic. I am in Charlotte for BNI and at the Global Support Headquarters and meeting with staff and directors and some members. Love visiting Global Support. I also love having my own office in my house. So that's even better. At one point, they asked me, they said, "Hey, do you want an office here at Charlotte?" And I'm like, "No, please. No." Because then I have to be there all the time. I love my office in Austin, but I also love to visit Charlotte. They're always so welcoming when I come to the Global Support office.
That's nice. So what do you have here? What is this influencing people with stories?
So what influences people most? Position? Power? Success? I don't think so. I think it's stories. In BNI, it's important to tell stories about how things look after you've done what you do in business. How does the client or the customer feel? What is their experience? Listen to the episode 588, Don't Bore Me to Tears. It's a great episode to hear a fantastic example of a very specific BNI story and how it makes people want to do business with that member. There is nothing in the world more powerful than a great story, one that touches upon an emotion, one that makes people smile, one that tugs on the heartstrings, one that inspires people, one that empowers them to take action and to transform their life in some way. Nothing is more powerful than a great story. So what makes a great story? I've talked about this before. In the book, The Elements of Persuasion, Robert Dickman was one of the co-authors of the book. And I met Robert years ago at the home of Peter Guber, who was the CEO of Mandalay Entertainment. He may still be the CEO. Mandalay Entertainment's done a lot of movies, including some of the original Batman movies. And very interesting man, Peter. And I met Robert there it was a storytelling day. We all got together and talked about what made stories work. And Robert shared something that I have shared for years with people. The formula of what I think makes a great story. And I've probably talked about this in a podcast in the past, but I want to emphasize it here today. A great story is a fact. It's information that you have. You are conveying information. That's first. Second, wrapped in an emotion. It could be excitement. It could be tugging on the heartstrings. It could be humor. I like humor. I use humor probably more than anything else. But it could be tugging on the heartstrings. It could be a passionate, excited presentation, which I'd like to think I also do. So it's a fact wrapped in an emotion. That compels people to take action. That when somebody hears it, they go, "I got to do that. Why am I not doing that? I need to do that." That's what I love. You know what I love about speaking to an audience is that I'll take a fact, I'll wrap it in an emotion, and I can look in the audience and I can see in the eyes of the people who are listening to me speak, I can see them light up. I can see them thinking, yeah, they're nodding. They're like, yeah, I need to do that. So it compels people to take action. And that by taking that action, it transforms them in some way. That's the key. That's what makes a great story, is that it transforms them in some way. that if they hear that information and if it's packaged in some emotion and it compels them to take action, they transform. They transform because they take action. They make a better life for themselves, a better business for themselves. They make a better version of themselves. That's what storytelling does. And one of the keys in telling a great story, and this is one of our 3+1, the key success factors for BNI is storytelling. And one of the key elements of storytelling is that you have to remember that you don't just retell a story, you relive a story. Don't just retell a story, relive a story. Imagine you are there. Describe something about what was around you. Be descriptive and make the story compelling. Relive the experience as you tell the story. Relive a story. Listen to episode number 597, where I talk about networking and win sprints. When I tell that story in episode 597, I am living that story. I remember that football field I was on. I remember the wind sprints. I remember the conditioning. I remember meeting the Los Angeles Rams. It was an amazing experience, and I relive it when I tell it. Listen to episode number 601 about making mistakes. And that's my Portuguese man of war story, where I talk about getting stung by a jellyfish. And when I tell that story, I relive it. I visualize what is taking place in front of me. And as I tell the story, I try to describe that. If you want to influence people, inspire them, and transform them, tell great stories. Stories that will want them to become a better version of themselves. Stories that compel them to take action. Stories are powerful. And we all have within us the ability to share that power with others. What are your thoughts, Priscilla?
Oh, well, what I'm thinking about is, first of all, you are a great storyteller. And I had the opportunity to hear you tell a very funny story when I was at the international conference that I attended once in Southern California for BNI. And
Yeah.
you told the story about going on television and doing one of your magic tricks that went awry. And
It did.
you have to say something about that story, because that story was hysterical.
It's a great story. And I tell it, we go way, way back to 2008. If you go to episode number 51, I was talking about Giver's Gain, chapter 8 of Giver's Gain. Back in 2008. And I tell that very story. And what we should do, Priscilla, is next week on a classic, let's do a classic of episode 51 where people can listen to that story. It is very funny. Sometimes stories, I think, if you can show humility in some of the stories that you tell, if you can be self-deprecating,
Right.
and especially if you have any level of success,
Yes.
being self-deprecating
Yes.
is a way of really connecting with people. And what I did was so embarrassing and so stupid. And I looked so bad that it's funny. I mean, in the moment, I was horrified as to what was happening. Horrified. But later, it became one of my better stories because it was just so crazy. And
Yes.
oftentimes, that's what makes a great story is you got to make it personal, transparent. It's got to be authentic. It's got to be compelling. And there was a message to that story. And if you go and listen to it, the message is we all screw up. It's okay. You just got to get back out there and practice and do it over and over again. I screwed up on live television. So it could be worse. Most people don't screw up on live television. Thank goodness YouTube didn't exist then. So telling great stories. And, before we wrap up, I've been mostly talking about telling stories about your business. And that's where the first episode that I was talking about, Don't Bore Me to Tears, episode 588. But telling stories about BNI is good. If you want someone to visit a BNI chapter, tell a great story about how it's impacted you. or someone you know. And storytelling works with just about anything in terms of influencing people. It's not position, it's not power, it's success. You want to influence people, it's storytelling. That's my message for today, Priscilla. Thanks.
That's great. I feel slightly embarrassed that we are having so much fun chuckling about your story, but we want to share it with you. So definitely listen to the classic podcast that's next week.
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, that's it for this week. This podcast is sponsored by MeisnerAudioprograms.com. These audio programs will provide you with the tools and the inspiration to powerfully enhance your BNI experience. So check out the great material that's available to you at MeisnerAudioprograms.com and then use the promo code IVAN50 for 50% off of everything. All of the proceeds go to the BNI Foundation. Thank you so much for listening. This is Priscilla Rice, and we look forward to having you join us again next week for another exciting episode of the official BNI podcast.